everyone! Today I am going to be sharing with you how I made a pair of late 18th century stays. Here I'm using the 1792 stays pattern from Nora Wow's Corsets and Crinolines. I'm tracing each pattern piece onto my fashion fabric, which is a hand-embroidered silk I purchased in the garment district in New York City about a year and a half ago. And I doubt the design on it is historically accurate, but I don't really care. If you do, I'm sorry. Now I'm cutting out each piece, adding seam allowance along the way. I did the same for the interlining pieces. This pattern is very interesting to me. It's fully boned, which I don't think was very common this late in the century, and it's even boned in the straps, which I've never seen before, and I thought would be uncomfortable, but was pleasantly surprised. I've altered the pattern and added about an inch to the width of each piece, and in hindsight I probably should have also shortened the stays. This pattern has no tabs on the waist, and although I found no issues when I made my mock-ups, the stays hit slightly lower on my torso than I would have liked, but overall they're still a comfortable fit. From there, I began to stitch. Or I would have, except I bent my needle. Always pay attention to where your pins are, folks. Okay, now I've begun to stitch. I stitched each channel, and this took a while even by machine, as anyone who's ever made stays before knows. As I sewed, I left a few inches on the ends of the thread of each row of stitches. I then took the ends and tucked them inside the stays to secure the stitching. I got this idea from Morgan Donner's video on making her 17th century stays, and it's a great way to get a nice clean look. I then inserted the boning into each channel. This required a lot of sanding. With all that sanding finally done, I folded down the seam allowance of each piece and pinned it. I then basted it to the wrong side of the panel. Then I connected the panels. Placing each piece right sides together, I whip stitched the two edges together. After that, I used thin strips of chamois, or as my father insists it's called, chamois, to cover the seams. Then I got to work on the binding. I cut out larger strips of chamois for this, 1 inch wide. I like using chamois because leather binding for stays is historically accurate, and the chamois is really easy to sew through. It's also really easy to acquire at any auto body shop. I stitched these strips to the edge of the stays, and then I turned the strips inward and whip stitched them to the interlining. After the stays were bound, I cut the lining out of this red linen that, as you can see, Cosette was very reluctant to give up. I folded down the seam allowance on each piece and pinned them to the stays. I then whip stitched each lining piece down. This project involved a lot of whip stitching, but I kind of enjoy the mindless work. It means I can just put on a YouTube video and settle in. After all that whip stitching is done, it's time for the final step, eyelets. For determining eyelet placement, I got the idea from Mariah Pattie's stay making video, which I'll link down below. This method uses a strip of paper, and it's very easy and doesn't require me to use math to figure out how many eyelets to use, or how to space them. I poked a hole where I wanted each eyelet to go, then whip stitched around the edge. I did this on the front and back edges, as well as on the straps and the part of the front where the straps connect. For sewing the eyelets, I started off using this embroidery floss, but eventually I switched over to just tripling up on white silk thread, because the embroidery floss didn't want to behave. And I'm done. Overall, I'm really proud of these. They are definitely far better than my first attempt at 18th century stays, and they give me a really nice silhouette for the 1790s. Like I said before, I probably should have shortened them by maybe half an inch, but they still work, and they're comfortable enough to use. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.